Look, listen. Are y'all paying attention to how many hospitals are closing? I've seen several videos this morning of people saying they have been laid off, or that the hospitals in the area are about to shut down. Look, let me tell you something. When I hear people justify why Medicare and Medicaid should be cut, it is very obvious they don't understand that a lot of hospitals and private practices depend on these policies to keep the lights on. With private insurance, you have to fight for payment if you get it. Sometimes you have to fight for months. Sometimes you have to fight for years. Sometimes you don't get payment at all. One little word, one little red tape, and nobody's going to pay, and the doctor just has to eat it. Unlike Medicare and Medicaid, this is the diagnosis, right? Okay, well, here are the 5 procedures you get to choose one. You going to do this one? Okay, that's $300. I'm going to go ahead and send you that check. All right, have a good one now. That little $300, that's what kept the lights on. Because it was real simple. That's $300 allowed the doctor to replenish their supplies while you make payments on a $3,000 bill. Now, imagine that scenario for multiple departments and multiple hospitals. They're all losing $300. That $300 that paid for the front desk staff, that paid the doctor's insurance, that paid the doctor's rent. That $300, gone. Do you know how many departments are going to shut down now that specialize in kids care, disabled, long chronic illness, senior services, OBGYN? Gone. They can't get a refill because the hospital that provided them the checkups to get the refill shut down. The doctor that they used to see moved out of the country. The only doctor that's nearby has an 8-month waiting list and is 3 to 4 hours away. And before you fix your mouth and say that's not my problem, that office that's 3 to 4 hours away from them, that's actually your doctor's office that's right down the street from you. So that 8 months wait, you'll be waiting that as well. And the sad part is there's still going to be people that will stand 10 toes down on it. I voted for this. Like, you voted for people to die because they can't get a refill. It's going to be really, 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 really rough. Really rough.
I hope people are paying attention to all of these healthcare worker layoffs happening. Nurse practitioners, nurses, physicians, advanced practice providers being laid off, nurses being laid off, patient care techs being laid off, respiratory, PT, OT, speech. Max, calm down, buddy. What's going on there? Just relax. Primary care offices closing, labor and delivery units closing, entire hospitals closing, urgent cares, emergency rooms, rural access facilities closing. And ask yourself how that could be happening during a respiratory surge. Also knowing how short-staffed facilities already are. Personnel are a cost. Frontline personnel are an expensive cost. Frontline personnel are expensive, and they're expensive to keep. Brand new personnel are a lot less expensive than experienced personnel. They're less expensive to turn over, to temporarily replace. Think about why that's happening. Think about why that is. Considering the immense need for healthcare in this country, consider whether or not you, your loved ones, your family members, your friends have needed healthcare, primary care, specialists, healthcare facilities, urgent cares, hospitals. Consider how often, how frequently you or your loved ones have needed care as of late. How difficult it was to wait, right? Seeing how understaffed healthcare facilities already are. And think about why they would be doing mass layoffs. Do you think it's because they don't need the staff? Or do you think it's because of corporate greed?
So here I am walking into my last shift in the emergency department. And it's not because I'm retiring. I wish it was because I was retiring. Actually walking into my last shift here in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, because the company that owns this hospital and another hospital in Chester, PA, are shysters and criminals and have stolen everything. When you make over $250 million as a CEO of a company, and then you close hospitals for people in need in communities that are fairly densely populated, including a trauma center, people are going to die, and that's what's going to happen, and these people should be held accountable. Thousands of people are losing their jobs by the end of this week, beginning of next. It's a disgrace. I've been in the medical field for 35 years, and I've worked in the emergency room now for over 22. There's nothing else you can say about it. It's a sad day. It's a sad day for Delaware County, Pennsylvania. It's a sad day for all the staff. I know hospitals aren't perfect, systems are broken, but when you intentionally pad your pockets at the result of people not being able to get care, you are immoral, you're a disgrace, you're unethical. I'm sure there's lots of nurses that I work with that all feel the same way. Doctors, housekeeping, kitchen staff, ancillary staff. So here's on to a new adventure in the nursing field. I don't really know what I'm going to do. But I like patient care. I like taking care of people. I like to take care of all people. I don't care who you are. Well, I'm an ER nurse, so that's probably not true. ER nurses do know that. Anyway, peace out to this portion of my life and my career. The only thing left to say is good night, Moon.
Also, 90% of supplies and medicine comes from China. Is hospitals being closed?
A lot of people aren't talking about this yet, but Hong Kong is going to stop using the U.S. Postal Service on April 27th as a reaction to these tariffs, and this is going to kill people. It is going to quietly kill thousands of people because we get so much medical supplies, prescription drugs out of Hong Kong's ports. And PPE stuff, diagnostic tools, things hospitals rely on. This is going to have huge disruptions to our medical supply chain. And if a diabetic doesn't have insulin in 48 hours, they could fucking die. There are a lot of people that could die if things like that are halted. I asked ChatGPT to give me a breakdown of what this could look like in deaths, and it doesn't look good. Its estimate is that in 1 to 3 months, this could kill around 5,000 people. In over a year, this could kill 100,000 people. And in things like a natural disaster, a pandemic, this would be even worse. Like after Hurricane Maria, like 3,000 people died, not because of the storm, but because they couldn't get medical supplies and their prescriptions and shit. I'm not being dramatic. This is real. And this will kill a lot of people silently. A lot of people won't pay attention and keep track of the deaths that will be caused by this. We need to put pressure on Trump to end these tariffs because this trade war that's going on will kill Americans. And I'm going to write up a whole article on what this will look like for my Substack if you're curious.
So I work in healthcare, and Hong Kong just announced yesterday that they were completely stopping all postal service to the United States. Who did that? Hong Kong. Hong Kong, okay. And we get 50% of all of our medical supplies and 91% of our medications from China. So hospitals are going to close. Yeah. What immediate action will you take to stop this? Hospitals are going to be immediately crippled as soon as next.
I want to kind of explain why not being able to get hospital supplies from China is such a big deal, and why really just not being able to get supplies in general for business in the United States is such a big deal. Well, because nobody keeps anything on hand anymore. So if you're operating a business like where you are importing things from China and then putting things together and then shipping them out, you don't have like any amount of time's worth of stuff saved up so that if you're shipping, you know, if something gets messed up, you can continue to make your products. We don't keep anything on hand. We don't store anything. Like basically the only people that keep things in warehouses from China in the United States are people who are like paying for third-party logistics, which is typically like drop shippers or like kind of like small businesses. Okay, so like they have a warehouse full of stuff that they might be able to sell, you know, continuously for the next like 3 months or so, and then they're going to be completely out, and they're not going to be able to re-up. Okay, but major corporations and businesses don't even do that. They have just enough stuff for this week to get through the week, and then they're waiting on a new shipment of items from China, from overseas, literally the next week. It's kind of been called like just-in-time capitalism, but it's sort of like just where late-stage capitalism has left us, because it's not, you know, financially you can save more money as a company if you do it this way, because you're sort of relying on the free shipping or the, you know, modified shipping, where you're getting, you know, a ton of things in at one time. So like it's actually not costing you really any extra money to just get everything shipped in every month or every week, whereas it will cost you money to buy a warehouse and hold those things and stock up on certain items. So like this all translates into healthcare. So healthcare uses an incredible amount of instantly used, like one-time use things like needles and masks and gloves, and like all of the equipment that comes in contact with the human body that can then be infectious or whatever. There's a disposable version of it that is used in hospitals. And I don't know about your local hospitals, but down in San Diego, which is kind of what I see as like the hospital center of the country, really, there isn't like a warehouse attached to the hospital that just holds all of the PPE and the medical supplies. Like that is not how that works. I have worked in hospitals, mostly in the food area, but there's little closets of supplies, and there's like, you know, little rolling carts of supplies, but those are depending on a huge supply truck coming in once or twice. Like sometimes it's just every other day it's coming with supplies. All of that is going to stop, because all of these paper products, these healthcare supplies, they're not, you know, essential electronics. They're not an iPhone or the components to make an iPhone, so there is no exception for them. There's no exception. There's no agreement in place for any of this equipment, any of these disposable things. So yeah, it's pretty legit. It's a matter of time before hospitals are not going to have the things that they need to function as a hospital. And that's pretty fucking scary, in my opinion. Like, here in San Diego, I mean, if we lost one of the 6 or so major hospitals, like, that would be a disaster. But all of the hospitals get all of their equipment from the same suppliers, which is China. And of course, another thing that's happened, capitalism in the United States, is monopolies have been sort of growing, and they're just completely unchecked for the most part. So there's been this monopolization, whatever. Okay, there's only a handful of companies that are supplying these PPE, these different supplies. Like, there isn't regional companies all over the United States anymore. There's just a handful of national suppliers. So yeah, like, the hospitals genuinely could be closing. Like, I'm sure, based on how things have been going, there'll be some agreement at the last minute, and maybe only like a couple thousand United States American citizens are gonna be unalived because, you know, the hospital couldn't be open for them. There was no emergency services. Like, that seems to be par for the course here with this administration where it's just like they'll let the problem start and let innocent lives be lost, and then they'll sort of step in and try to fix it. So stay safe and stay healthy, please. If you're sick, stay home. Don't spread whatever the hell you have.
There's a really dangerous trend happening right now in hospitals in America, and it really perfectly illustrates how our current healthcare system exploits our psychological blind spots and puts lives at risk. So in case you're not aware, investors like private equity firms are buying up hospitals in low-income communities. They are then selling the land beneath these hospitals to trusts. A really famous one is the Medical Properties Trust that now owns $16 billion of hospital real estate. And basically what happens is that the hospital then has to pay rent on the property that they once owned, which already adds to the massive debt burdens that a lot of these hospitals, especially in low income areas, are placed on them by often for-profit owners like private equity firms. And I think a lot of people take hospitals for granted, especially if you live in a more urban center. You typically have lots of options in terms of hospitals, but for a lot of these lower income rural communities, they might have one hospital in a multi-dozen mile radius. And a lot of times, which happens with these really nefarious financial trends, is that we do not notice that they are happening until it is already too late. And the language around a lot of these deals tends to separate the financial transaction of it all from the real human consequences. Terms like asset optimization, unlocking value often masks the reality that these deals can devastate healthcare access for vulnerable communities and lead to hospital closures. And private equity firms often operate on the psychological bias of temporal discounting, where they often undervalue future outcomes compared to immediate gains. So investors get immediate profits, while the community will bear the long-term consequences of the diminished healthcare access. And there's lots of disturbing parts about all this, but to me, the most disturbing is that we seek medical care when we are most vulnerable, often with the least capacity to shop around or advocate for ourselves. And this can really create a captive market that investors know they can exploit and do. And why I'm talking about this is that understanding these trends and understanding these psychological dynamics can help us recognize when financial innovations are actually predatory and they're disguised as business efficiency or whatever. So if you live in an area or you know an area where a hospital is changing ownership, pay attention to that. Pay attention to who's buying it, what the situation is. The financial engineering behind the scenes might be putting profit above patient care in a way that's kind of designed to fly below your awareness.
It was recently announced that the hospital in which I completed my intern year program at is closing, and not enough people are talking about the fact that another private equity company ruined another Philadelphia area hospital. This is just like what happened with Hahnemann, for those of you that remember that, but this is displacing residents, it's stripping patients in that area of proper care, and it's completely deleterious to the community and its health and well-being. I don't know a lot of the nuances. I don't have a financial background, but in my understanding, private equity does not work well with large hospital systems, especially in underserved areas. Chester County, Pennsylvania is defined as a medically underserved area by the Human Services and Resources Administration. So I'm not sure why a for-profit hospital would be successful. It's just very upsetting because all of my previous co-interns who are now also PGY3s in their respective specialties at Crozier are now forced to find other hospitals to complete their graduation requirements, to complete their residency, to become board certified physicians and work in this world as doctors and provide care. And also it's upsetting to all of the other medical professionals that were working at that hospital, all of the attendings, the nurses, the advanced practice providers, all of the transport staff, the janitors, everyone, the cafeteria people, everyone involved lost jobs. And then let alone it was a hospital, so the Chester County area just won't have access to care. And that's one of the biggest barriers if you learn in any intro health policy administration, it is access to health care. That's a huge barrier. So this is just very bad on a lot of levels, and I don't think enough people are talking about it.
And this is, again, where I did my intern year, so I know what it's like there. And what I used to hear about it, that it used to be this amazing hospital in the area, and it wasn't as bad as what people were saying. But then that company, Prospect Medical Holdings, bought it, and then they did the classic private equity, honestly, death spell on it. And I don't have a financial background, but my understanding of private equity is that companies who are private off the stock market are buying hospitals with other people's money, and it's a joint ownership, so private equity being ownership, and they are then doing something called a sale to lease back, in which they sell the land that these hospitals are on and then make that hospital lease it or rent it from whatever overarching company or real estate investment firm had bought the land. So this is very problematic on multiple levels because hospitals shouldn't be paying rent to people. I'm pretty sure the hospital should have its own land that it's on, because that sounds super expensive and kind of insane and unregulated. And then it just creates this financial ruin. So it's no surprise that this hospital had to close because it wasn't making this private equity company billions of dollars. I'm not sure what they expected, but I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens, and it's honestly criminal what Prospect Medical Holdings did. And it's not just them, it's going to be the other private equity companies involved in processes like this. And it's extremely disappointing, and it just makes my blood boil, to be honest.
This is a warning to every hospital system owned by a private equity firm. Hey guys, this is Charlie. I want to bring up something right now that's happening close to home physically for me. I think it's kind of contextually relevant because it's probably happening all over the country. If you live in the Delaware County, Philadelphia region, you've probably heard that Crozier Health is shutting down. And this is including Chester Medical Center, which is Delaware County's only trauma center. Delaware County is a big suburb of Philadelphia. They just lost their only trauma center. Besides over 2,000 people losing their jobs, thousands of patients just lost access to critical care, or the access that they once had. As someone in EMS, this is sending shockwaves. We have to change a lot of response operations out there in Delaware County. But I want to talk about why this is happening. Crozier was owned by a private equity firm. It's called Prospect Medical Holdings, and they're not even in Pennsylvania at all. I think they're in Texas or California, or I think it's California or something. They're not in Pennsylvania for sure. And they bought the system and basically made a ton of financial decisions, which were probably beneficial for them in the short term, but in the long run, just did not hold up. And we're here now because of that. Simply put, when private equity prioritizes profits over patients, communities, healthcare workers, politics, it all suffers. So after Prospect bought Crozier in 2016, they made a lot of decisions that kind of inevitably would lead to a downfall. For example, they repeatedly paid out substantial dividends to their investors, basically to increase the company's debt burden, so make it a little more financially stable for the time. So it also sold all of the hospital's land back to the state and then leased it back. So it provided them some immediate capital, but there were a lot of long-term obligations that they, couldn't financially handle. In fact, Prospect was sued in 2024 for mismanagement and neglect of the Crozier Health system, specifically for distributing those dividends to investors at the same time that they were cutting services left and right. And this came back to bite them in the ass, because when it came down to the wire, their deteriorating facilities and basic standards, they couldn't get a buyer. And they tried. It almost happened with Penn Medicine, but Crozier could not uphold their end of the bargain facility-wise. And pretty much everyone, including the governor, is attributing the closure of this hospital and its effect on the community to financial greed and mismanagement. Here's the thing, a lot of health systems are owned by private equity firms. And in cases like this, where the only trauma center in the county is owned by a private equity firm, there just has to be more scrutiny on financial decisions. If you've worked in the region, if you've worked at Crozier, let me know your thoughts. And if your health system is owned by a private equity firm, what kind of decisions do you see being made? I want to wish best of luck to the community and to the providers. Come join the coalition. Email us if you want to talk.
Let's break down what's really happening with Steward Healthcare, because this isn't just business drama, it's a healthcare disaster unfolding in real time. On May 6th, Steward filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This Texas-based for-profit health system operates 31 hospitals across 8 states, and now it's unraveling fast. We're talking 2,187 layoffs, 4 hospitals closed in Massachusetts and Ohio alone, including Kearney Hospital in Dorchester and Hillside Rehab in Warren, Ohio. In Phoenix, St. Luke's Behavioral Health was shut down after temps inside hit 99 degrees. Patients and staff literally suffered from heat exhaustion. Employees were furloughed. 255 people lost their jobs. In Florida, hospitals like Coral Gables, North Shore, and Hialeah were sold off in bankruptcy court to out-of-state companies. One Florida hospital had to shut down its NICU and OB units, eliminating critical maternal services. And then there's Rockledge Regional. Yes, a pest control lawsuit revealed a bat infestation that cost over $936,000 to remove. That's how bad operations got under Stewart. What's worse, Arizona's Attorney General launched an investigation into Stewart's handling of funds and bankruptcy. And while these closures ripple out, it's nurses, techs, patients, and whole communities that suffer. Access to care is gone, jobs are lost, entire cities are left scrambling for emergency services. This is what happens when healthcare is run for profit instead of for people. And as a legal nurse consultant myself and a former operating room nurse, I'm calling this what it is. It's a systemic failure of oversight, regulation, and corporate ethics. This should be a wake-up call for everyone, from lawmakers to patients themselves, because if this can happen to 31 hospitals, it can happen anywhere.
Signs that your hospital might be getting ready to close and not telling employees. Location. Is it in an area that disproportionately serves a disadvantaged community, lower socioeconomic population? Have they, in the last recent couple of years, closed units or entire service lines, like OB, like no more L&D unit, or PEDS? Yeah. Is the overall hospital census dropping? Are they pausing admissions? Are they really aggressively transferring patients out? Have they been closing any of their associated outpatient clinics, urgent cares, any of those in the year, 2, maybe 3 years prior? Have they had lots of reorganization, restructuring? Have they had a recent bankruptcy? Is upper management resigning en masse? Have they put a halt on not just hiring? There's a hiring freeze, but there's suddenly no more travelers or locum. Yeah, that can be a sign. And then 2 really big ones that I think are overlooked a lot are supplies and equipment. So is equipment suddenly disappearing? Poof, vanished. That can be because it's either expensive equipment that they own and they are transferring it to other locations that are more secure, or it's equipment that they don't own because they actually rent and lease a lot of equipment. They don't always own all of it, and they're not paying their bills. So it's kind of getting repoed, and supplies. This can be anything from medical supplies to printer paper to pharmacy, medications, anything and everything in between. And the thing is, they're never going to tell you it's because they didn't pay their bill, right? They're going to say, oh, it's delayed. It should be here next week. Or there's a disruption in the supply chain. That's a real common one. They're not paying their vendors. They're not paying their creditors. They have been given a freeze on their credit from their vendors. Like, they're not paying their bills, okay? Is the hospital not getting cleaned as they normally would? Like they're not waxing the floors and doing the extra stuff. These are all really big red flags. Have they paused big hospital-wide projects, like maybe an expansion that was being planned? Is your manager canceling staff meetings? Are they no longer pushing all the compliance stuff as hard? They're not really mentioning like survey readiness, that kind of stuff. And last but not least, not paying employees on time. Big red flag, okay? Talk to other departments in the hospital. Nursing is going to be the last to know every time. Talk to other departments, especially housekeeping and EVS. They go and clean everywhere. They go to the C-suite. They can often observe a lot of things, ask them, like, have you overheard anything? Have you seen anything? What's the vibe? Talk to pharmacy, ask them directly instead of just going through your manager. What's up with not having these meds? Talk to other departments. But yeah, those can all be big red flags that a hospital or healthcare facility is getting ready to close and not tell anyone until they have to.
I think people should know this. Hospitals nationwide are letting go of people left and right. something is seriously wrong, and not many people are talking about it. So we have a new budget plan, and it just might have some healthcare cuts. I mean, I don't think there'd be this many hospitals laying off this many people if they didn't see this coming. And I'm serious, just Google hospital layoffs, and you will see nothing but mass layoffs nationwide, everywhere. It just keeps going. Now, this courageous healthcare worker at the top here posted a video because she works in Delaware County, and they're letting everybody go at the hospital. And it's happening to all the hospitals around her hospital. And you should see people's comments. She went on to say, I'm a respiratory therapist working my last shift tonight at Taylor. We had a 3-day notice that we were losing our jobs for profit private equity firms. They have no place in healthcare. Another person said the closures are the result of actions by private equity firms. They accumulated substantial debt and diverted funds to dividends to pay investors. Basically, they took the money and filed bankruptcy. This is our healthcare system, people. So either these cuts are coming and they know it, and these equity firms are getting out now and running with the money, or something is massively up because there are layoffs nationwide. Every state, we could have a serious, serious problem here.
Big news out of Modesto, California. Stanislaus Surgical Hospital is closing its doors indefinitely starting on September 14th. This decision impacts all 160 employees, including nurses, physical therapy assistants, and office staff after CMS has terminated their Medicare and Medi-Cal contracts. CMS found the hospital out of compliance with key standards in pharmaceutical services, infection control, and overall patient care. The hospital disagrees and may appeal the decision, but for now, the shutdown is a hard hit to the community, especially for patients and staff who have relied on this facility for over 20 years. It's a reminder of the importance of regulatory compliance in healthcare and the devastating impact it can have when things go wrong.